Hey, we're back with another episode of Empowerment and Illness. I'm Gwen. In this episode, I'm going to expose a critical but often overlooked issue, the lack of representation in medical research and clinical trials, and how the invisibility impacts diagnosis, treatment options, medication safety, and outcomes for people with chronic illnesses and autoimmune conditions. You'll leave this episode knowing how to advocate for your community, join the movement, and demand equity in the science that claims to heal us. Let's start with the hard truth. Most clinical trials are not designed with people like us in mind. When researchers plan a trial, the criteria they use to select participants often automatically excludes individuals with multiple conditions, ongoing treatments, or complex symptoms. Essentially, people who represent the true face of chronic illness. What's worse, people of color, disabled individuals, women, and other marginalized groups are underrepresented at every level, from design to execution. You might think medicine is inclusive, that the science is neutral, but look closer and you'll see who's missing. The average clinical trial participant is white, male, and able-bodied. Meanwhile, Black and brown communities are overrepresented in the burden of disease, but underrepresented in the solutions. That's not just a flaw, it's a dangerous bias. If the research doesn't reflect the real world, then the treatment created from that research won't either. Imagine trying to fix a broken car using a manual that wasn't written for your model. That's what it's like when doctors prescribe treatments based on trials that excluded your community. You're handed a promise of relief, but it's built on data that doesn't include your body, your experience, or your reality. And then, when it doesn't work, you're blamed for being non-compliant or difficult. But the real issue, the science didn't see you in the first place. This is where our advocacy began. We have to question who the system is serving. Ask your provider, your pharmacist, even your insurance company, was this treatment tested on people like me? Push for transparency and accountability. Share your experience. Your voice forces the industry to expand its vision, and until that happens, we must hold the system accountable for every life it overlooks. Now let's talk about what happens when the science gets it wrong or just incomplete. When trial populations don't reflect the diversity of those actually living with chronic illness, it can lead to major consequences. Medications are approved that don't work for everyone. Side effects shows up in the real world that wasn't seen in trials. And when patients report them, they're often dismissed. Why? Because the trial data didn't predict it, because it didn't include them. You see, data drives everything in medicine. Diagnosis, treatments, drug approvals, even insurance coverage. But when that data is skewed, biased, or missing large portions of the population, it becomes a weapon instead of a tool. How many people have been told that's not a known side effect, or that's not how this medication works, only to suffer silently while their body reacts in real time? These aren't rare exceptions. They are the ripple effects of exclusion. Think of research like a map. If that map only includes straight, flat roads and you live in a mountainous region, you're going to get lost. You're going to hit potholes, cliffs, and detours that no one warned you about. And when you go back and say, "This map failed me," the system says, "No, it must be you who read it wrong." That's the gaslighting embedded in incomplete science. So what do? First, we demand better maps. We need inclusive research that reflects the terrain of real life, curves, complications, and all. Second, we need to speak up when a treatment fails us. That feedback isn't just a complaint, it's crucial data. And finally, we need to protect ourselves and each other. Share knowledge, challenge the norms. Your truth can be the missing piece in someone else's healing. Let's pull back the curtains on how research is built. It starts with who designed it. And often, that's a team of people who don't look like us, live like us, or understand our lives. The criteria they choose, the questions they ask, and even the endpoints they define are shaped by their own experience. So, before the first participant is even enrolled, the system is already excluding people with intersection identities, real-world struggles, and multiple chronic diagnoses. Next, we face access issues. Clinical trials are mostly held in large research hospitals or urban academic centers, often far from the community that carries the highest burden of disease. Transportation, time off work, language barriers, and mistrust all become roadblocks. And for those who make it in, the trial may require you to stop other treatments, show up every week, or meet strict lab requirements, things that disqualify many who actually need the medication. Add to this the issue of bias from providers and researchers themselves. If a doctor doesn't believe a patient is compliant or articulate enough, they may not even mention a trial. If the researchers assume your body won't respond like others, they may exclude you altogether. These small decisions add up, creating a system where privilege, not need, determines who gets to participate in medical advancements. We need a shift in mindset. Research can't just be for those who are easiest to study. It must prioritize those most impacted. That means changing trial locations, simplifying enrollment, removing bias criteria, and partnering with communities from the beginning. Only when patients are seen as collaborators, not subjects, can the science finally serve the people it's meant to help. For many communities of color, especially Black, Indigenous, and Latin individuals, science doesn't feel like hope. It feels like harm. And that harm isn't imagined. It's historical, repeated, and institutionalized. From the Tuskegee syphilis study to forced sterilization to the story of Henrietta Lacks, the people of color have been used, ignored, and left out of the benefits of medicine. So when a doctor says, trust the science, we remember how that same science once betrayed us. Benlysta is a perfect example. When it was first approved in 2011 as one of only 2 lupus-specific drugs in 50 years, it brought hope. But here's the problem. Only about 14% of the people in those clinical trials were Black, despite Black women being disproportionately impacted by lupus. And worse, the subgroup analysis showed that Benlysta didn't significantly help Black patients. It was approved anyway. It was hailed as a breakthrough, but it didn't include us in that success. I remember when my own rheumatologist mentioned Benlysta to me. He said, I'm not sure how well it'll work. It wasn't tested on people who look like you. That moment stayed with me. It was a mix of honesty and heartbreak. I eventually tried Benlysta, and it didn't work for me. But I also know warriors it has helped, because in the years since, more inclusive trials have been conducted. That matters. It shows progress, even if that progress came too late for some of us. We can't erase the past, but we can hold it accountable. We can acknowledge the betrayal while pushing for better. Today's research has a responsibility to do more than just invite us in. It must protect us, honor our trust, and reflect our reality. That's not just ethical, it's essential. And if the system wants our participation, it has to earn our belief. Advocacy doesn't just happen on Capitol Hill or in protest marches. It starts in exam rooms, pharmacies, online support groups, and kitchen table conversations. It starts the moment you ask a question like, was this medication tested on someone like me? Or why wasn't I told about that trial? That curiosity is advocacy. That courage is advocacy. And it ripples out louder each time. We need to get comfortable challenging the power structure. Ask who designed the study. Ask if the population matched yours. Ask why the side effects they saw didn't match what you're feeling. Then share your story. in support groups, on social media, with researchers who actually listen. Patient-led data is powerful, and when you speak, you give others permission to speak too. Participating in a trial can be empowering if it's done safely and ethically, but you're not obligated. If your gut says no, listen to it. But if you're interested, seek out patient-centered studies, especially those run by organizations that prioritize marginalized voices. Look for terms like community-based research, culturally competent, or inclusive recruitment. These signs tell you whether the study sees you as a person, not just a number. Lastly, we must hold the entire system accountable. That means calling out tokenism, demanding transparent data, pushing for demographic breakdowns, and supporting legislations that mandates diversity in research. Advocacy isn't about fixing everything at once. It's about chipping away, day by day, voice by voice, until medicine finally becomes what it was always meant to be, healing for all. For our listeners' call to action plan, ask your doctors the hard questions. The next time your provider recommends a medication, ask, was this tested on people like me? Or was this clinical trial inclusive of my demographic? Your voice in that room helps shift the culture of medicine toward transparency. Share your story on your terms. Whether you participated in a clinical trial or been excluded from one, your experience matters. Post about it, write about it, talk about it in your support groups. Representation in research begins with representation in conversations. Support organizations demanding research equity. Follow and amplify groups like the Lupus Foundation of America, Black Women's Health Imperative, Centers for Information and Study on Clinical Research Participation, and local advocacy networks fighting for inclusion in medicine. Advocate for better policies. Contact your elected officials and ask where they stand on research equity. Support legislation that mandates diversity in clinical trials and provide community-based trial access. Science should reflect everyone, not just a privileged few. Encourage your community to engage with safe, inclusive trial. If you or someone you know want to participate in research, start at clinicaltrials.gov or connect with patient-led registries. Look for trials that are culturally competent and led by inclusive teams. And if it doesn't feel safe, walk away. Before we leave, I would like to close with a special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel it, do it. Let the depression in for only 3 minutes. Once you reach 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and get back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When we hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born and the day they pass away. There is a dash in the middle. It's not a long line, but a short dash. That dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness. Don't let your condition stop you. The future of healthcare depends on truth, and the truth is, we can't keep accepting research that doesn't reflect us. The chronic illness community deserves treatment that understands the bodies we live in, the symptoms we battle, and the complexities of our lived experience. If science continues to erase us, we must raise our voices until it listens. You don't have to be a scientist to change science. Your story matters. But for many of us, especially people of color, that story includes a legacy of betrayal. The system told us we didn't matter until it needed our bodies. That kind of harm doesn't just disappear. So, if you're hesitant to trust research or clinical trials, that hesitation is valid. We are not just fighting for inclusion. We're fighting for justice, for safety, and for truth. This isn't just about representation. It's about survival. It's about building a healthcare future where treatment works for us, not just those who fit the mold. The next time someone hands you a study, ask, who was in it? If the answer isn't you, keep pushing. You belong in the data. You belong in the solution. Remember, you have the strength, the heart, and the support to continue your journey. Be safe.